And here's the Artist's Almanac for February 17th, 2018. Today marks the disappointing first performance of Giacomo Puccini's opera, Madame Butterfly, which premiered at Milan's famed Teatro alla Scala on this day in 1904. Despite an all-star cast, the opera was poorly received, due in part to a late completion by the composer, and is, in fact, one of the greatest opera scandals in Italy's history. For over 2 years, the composer worked intensively on his new opera and finished the score in December of 1903. Convinced it would be a big success, Puccini and his publisher, Giulio Ricordi, planned a gala premiere of the work for February 17th of the following year. But problems emerged even during rehearsals. Ricordi demanded strict secrecy. Giulio Gatti Casazza, the director of Milan's La Scala, said this of rehearsals: "The artists were instructed to learn the parts all alone in the opera house. They weren't even allowed to take the piano scores home. During preparations, no outsiders were allowed, not even the press, who were usually offered tickets to the dress rehearsals." Puccini himself had this to say after witnessing an audience that had laughed, hissed, and whistled during the performance, before falling stone silent at the conclusion. "I'm still completely devastated from everything that happened. Not so much by what was done to my poor butterfly, but with the poison directed towards me as an artist and a person. The premiere was an inferno alla Dante, and was long in coming." Within 3 months, Puccini had reworked the opera, turning its original 2 acts into 3, shortening a number of things and adding the peerless humming chorus. The new version of Madame Butterfly was received with enthusiasm by the audience and critics alike on May 28, 1904 in Brescia. 2 years later, Puccini put together a final version of the opera, which quickly conquered stages all over the world and is still one of the most performed operas in history, receiving over 2,600 worldwide performances last season alone. After the failed La Scala premiere, Puccini wrote defiantly, "Madama Butterfly will remain what it is, the most soulful, expressive opera that I have ever written, and ultimately I will triumph." There's no doubt that he was right. Today also marks the anniversary of the Armory show, the first large exhibition of modern art in America. Organized by the Association of American Painters and Sculptors in 1913, the show became a hugely important event in the history of American art, and introduced to astonished Americans who were accustomed to realistic art the experimental styles of the European avant-garde, including Fauvism, Cubism, and Futurism, and served as a catalyst for American artists who became more independent in creating their own artistic language. The list of artists represented was astonishing, both in quantity and quality, including the show's most famous and polarizing works, Marcel Duchamp's Nude Descending a Staircase No. 2, and the painting Blue Nude by Henri Matisse, which drew particular ire when the show arrived in Chicago, creating a scandal that reached the governor's office after students took to burning effigies of Blue Nude on the steps of the Art Institute. But in the end, and as usual, good art won. Perhaps most telling of the success of the Armory show is the fact that a century after the moral police ran catchy headlines like "Cubist art will be investigated. Illinois legislative investigators to probe the moral tone of the much-touted art." Picassos are selling at up to $175 million, and not far from the birthplace of American statehood hangs Nude Descending a Staircase in the Philadelphia Art Museum. Anyway, wouldn't it be refreshing if today the only investigations making headlines was the moral tone set by Cubism? I, for one, think so. Thanks for listening. Be kind, do good work, and until next time.